the lane, 15, 10, touchdown Chargers!
What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. And Money, these are one of my favorite episodes where we answer questions from the people. We do it about once every 4 or 5 weeks, and a lot of great questions this next 40 minutes or so. But I want to start with Leonard Floyd going to the Buffalo Bills. We talked about all these available pass rushers. Leonard Floyd's going to Buffalo to team up with Von Miller, which is what he did with the Rams when they went to the Super Bowl and won it. And he said that there was other teams involved, but Buffalo was the team he wanted to play for and potentially win a Super Bowl.
Sort of kind of bellies what we talked about last week, that when you get into these deals, players are going to look for teams. They're going to help them perform in post numbers. So when they get back into the market next year, they're at least going to have similar, if not better, numbers than they had the year prior. And reading between the lines, I think a lot of that was sort of said by Leonard. If you read into what he was saying, I want to win a Super Bowl. He's going to team up with Von Miller. You know what that defensive line looks like. He's going to be fresh. Maybe he's going to end up being an edge pass rushing specialist. They're pretty deep along that offensive line. So, and you look at the number, right? Here's a guy that's essentially averaging double-digit sacks for a half-decade straight, and it's $7 million with incentives. So it's a pretty low-money deal. And like he said, he left a little bit on the table, and I guess that's what we're hoping, is that there's more of that out there. The one interesting thing, and I was at the golf tournament on Monday and talking to some people and just feeling them out about all these premium position guys that are out there and why they're still out there, and they said the same thing. And that is, one, just waiting for that right deal to come, and two, maybe they just don't want to go to training camp. Maybe they don't want to go to mini camp. Maybe they want to wait this thing out, and they're going to get the same amount of money now probably as they would a little bit down the road. And a lot of those vets back in the day would come up with a little ailment as to why they couldn't make it. Oh, but I'll be there, and then they show up a couple weeks late, and that could be a big part of it. Those are vets that have been Clowney and Clark and Ngakoue. These guys have been around for a long time, and that very well could be it, unless there's a number that they absolutely feel like they got to go get. But scratch Floyd off, still a lot of guys out there to help along the defensive line.
It's a great point that maybe guys are waiting till end of July to kind of slide into camp, avoid this mandatory mini camp coming up. Leonard Floyd would have been a nice addition, but there are other guys out there. And of course, the hope is that Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack play as many games as possible for this team. And the development of Tuli Tuipulotu and Chris Rumph continues to accelerate. And they have a pretty decent pass rush going into 2023. But not done yet. I think we still have a lot of time to go. Money, let's get into some of these questions. And the first one is from Brady Wooten. From a scheme perspective, offense, defense, or special teams, what newcomer are you guys most excited to see on this Chargers roster? Real quick, Money, I'll just jump in and say Eric Kendricks.
Yeah, take it.
I think the coverage, his coverage ability, what he's proven throughout his career. I know he's a little bit older, but just imagine popping him into that Jacksonville game in the second half and doing work and not having a 27-0 lead or race. I think that's the type of guy that you need on this defense. And you've said it specifically that, hey, I don't want to hear about the defense anymore. The offense has got to score points, and we got to continue to see 38, 41-point games so we can, outduel the Bills and the Chiefs of the world. But I do think a guy like Eric Kendricks can help Deion Henley, can help Kenneth Murray, but more importantly, can just be the guy that people turn to in that linebacking core and say, this is a leader on this team.
I'm going to cheat a little bit on the question just because it's not like last year when they signed a lot of guys in free agency and you could pick from that. We know that rookies can have a big impact. Rashawn Slater, Derwin James, we know that full well. But so I'm just going to cheat a tiny bit. Not really. It's a full cheat. It's not even a tiny bit. I'm going to go on offense. I'm excited to see the offensive line. Now, it's been reconfigured, so it's a new offensive line. And Zion moving to the left side plug in Jamari into guard. Trey, after what was, for the most part, a breakout year last year. So to me, this offensive line group is new. Even though it's the same players, they haven't played together, and I'm very excited about their potential. And putting Zion next to Slater, the strength that those two have, how good Jamari showed himself to be, picking up where he left off, winning a national championship at Georgia, and just the emergence of Trey. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. I know it's not as sexy as a wide receiver or Quentin Johnston or whatever it may be, but that's what I'm looking for on offense and on defense, to be honest. I think I'm sort of looking, it's crazy as it sounds, it's just the continued development of how Derwin's going to be used in Brandon Staley's defense. So they're just, I feel like last year they really, in the drafting of JT Woods, they really wanted to cut him loose and make him that queen on the chessboard, as people like to talk about, and putting him everywhere, up high, in the box, on the edge, in the middle of the field, as a slot defender, as the star. He's still, I think with this roster, they're still trying to figure out a way to make that happen. And I'm hopeful that this season, that's going to be something that we have to look forward to, that JT will take the next step, that he can play high in that too high shell with Alohi, and Derwin can just destroy. And that's what he's so good at, is you can put him anywhere on the field and he will make an impact. And I prefer to have him as close to the ball as possible, or as close to a premier player as possible. Anytime you've got to pull him back 10 yards, 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, I feel like it's a loss for the defense just pre-snap. So those are two things that I'm most looking forward to that I hope will look different and look better this year.
Yeah, Money, it's a great segue into the next question. But real quick, Derwin was at the golf tournament, and somebody asked him about JT Woods, and he plainly said JT has got to be more physical and has to kind of grow into his body into his second year in the NFL. It was also very apparent to me that Alohi Gilman is somebody he's very comfortable with as his running mate at this point. So let's see what JT Woods looks like coming into training camp, and if he can make that leap from year one to year two. Jared Robertson, we've seen the footage of Derwin working at edge. What do you guys think about this? Any thought that Kellen and Nuss, the quarterback coach, saw this in Dallas with Micah, and that's how this came about? It actually came about week one last year, and Joey got hurt. So I think that's the one thing we took from that Raiders game, is we saw Khalil and Derwin on the same side, like, oh my, this could be frightening for offenses in 2022. Then Joey got hurt, then personnel changes, and Khalil is having to do a lot. He's seeing a lot of double teams. Derwin has to do more in the secondary, and that's why we're hoping that Joey stays healthy this year, so Derwin can do that on a game-to-game basis.
Sort of just building on what we just discussed in the last answer, in terms of what I was looking forward to seeing. Derwin can do it. I don't think, not to take anything away from the speculation, but I don't think it has anything to do with Kellen and Doug Nussmeier. I think it's more, Derwin's always done that. The stories of him when he was being drafted, remember, and you hear everything about every player that's likely to go in the first round. I mean, you heard about him playing 3 technique and a 0 technique on his high school team when their opponent in the state championship game was just a super physical between the tackles running squad, and he's the one that stuffed him on a 4th and 1 to win the state championship. At Florida State, they put him on edge at times when they needed that pass rush. He's a really good pass rusher. He's a very good pass rusher. He times up his blitzes really well. It is hard, even though you're talking about equal, or maybe even he's a little bit lighter than some of the running backs that are in pass protection on third down. He blows them up. He's incredibly strong. He's long. He has bend like edge players do. So to me, that's just that video. Instead of, are they working on something? No, that's just a great player trying to be better. That's a great player that may have the tag that says safety on the depth chart, but to him, he's just a football player, and he's got 2 of the greatest pass rushers in the NFL, one of the greatest of all time in Khalil Mack, as he's sort of nearing the backside of his career now. So why not lean on them, knowing there are going to be occasions when he's called upon to rush? So Joey's got the best hands in the NFL. So why not lean on him for his hands, lean on Khalil Mack for his power and his bull rush, and find out if there's something you can add. Even though he's a safety, he's still called upon to rush the passer from time to time, at least once a game, and sometimes, like you said, in the Raiders game, a lot. And he's very effective doing it, so refine your technique. Again, even though it says S next to your name on the depth chart, doesn't matter. You're asked to go get the quarterback, so figure out ways you can do that more effectively.
Since he put on that Chargers helmet, he's always been the third best pass rusher on the team. That goes back to when it was Bosa and Melvin, and now Bosa and Mack. Derwin is always the third best pass rusher on the team. It's just a fact. What do you expect from Jasir and JT Woods this season? This is from Chris G. Seems like they're being set up for bigger roles this year, barring any late free agent additions. We've talked a lot about JT Woods' money, but Jasir Taylor is a player that flashed, frankly, in training camp last year. And I was just going back to a Jeff Miller article from last year and how he was kind of trying to soak up knowledge from Bryce Callahan. He got his first start, played 90% of the snaps in that Miami game, and ended up with, I think, 3 starts last year. So it would be fun to see him start against the Miami Dolphins week 1 with Ronaldo Hill on the other side. But I don't know if we're talking enough about Jasir Taylor. We've talked a lot about, hey, Bryce Callahan's out there still. But maybe Jasir's ready for this moment. I still think that 165 snaps isn't a ton to really tell from your rookie season. But he showed flashes. We know what he did on special teams, specifically in that Monday night game against the Broncos, helping them win it. But I am excited to see what Jasir does in training camp.
Well, I would answer it simply as saying he's the starting slot. Yeah. That's what he is right now. There's no one else on the team that's unless J.C. Jackson. Look, if in an ideal world, J.C. and Michael Davis are your outside corners. Asante's your slot. That's your best corner lineup. If that's in the cards, and it sounds like it could be. And that means, and the nice thing about Jasir is he's big. So he can play on the outside and tackle and be a physical presence and run support. But if you're asking me what's best case this season for Jasir Taylor is special team standout, provides depth at the corner position, and he's the 4th corner behind Asante, JC, and Michael Davis. That would be best case. But I think with the injury to Jackson and us not necessarily knowing if he's going to be ready for week 1, right now, as it stands, he would be the starting slot. Or outside, and Asante's a slot, but I'm guessing, right, they view him as a slot corner. And so that's what I would envision. But again, nothing against Taylor. Let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope that it's Davis, Jackson, Samuel as your starting 3 corners in nickel.
2 of his 3 starts last year came against the Dolphins and Titans, and that was when the defense really started playing its best ball down the stretch. So he was in with that unit, and they were playing good ball in December going into January. This is from our buddy
I think you
James.
saw just going to the slot versus outside thing. You saw how much he really struggled in the Jacksonville game outside when Mikey Davis went down, and that's when they really started to eat in the passing game. So it's look, some guys, and slot is not easy. It's just a different skill set, and perhaps that's what he is suited to do best. And so that's sort of what my vision is. As of today, starting slot, moving forward, we hope a depth piece, because that would mean the team is healthy.
Yeah, Michael Davis leaving that game, such an underrated reason why they lost that game in the second half. This is from our friend James. Money, what's your biggest focus heading into training camp, offense or defense?
I'd say probably offense, just because of the new coordinator. They're not going to show us a lot, but I'm sort of anxious to see, what we'll be able to tell, how it's good. Because you can still pull some stuff out of training camp. They don't show you a ton, but you see enough to kind of get an idea of sort of what are the lineups going to look like? What kind of formations are they going to be in? Is there a lot of bunch? Is there a lot of 2 tight ends? Is Eckler going to be flexed out and Isaiah in the backfield? So we'll sort of get so I'm anxious to see what Kellen's vision is. It's a little more, the defense is going to look the same. There's not a lot of new pieces. There's the same coordinator, even though Derek Ansley's been promoted, and certainly he's going to have a much bigger voice on that side of the ball, but he and Staley are going to work together on that defense. So I suspect it'll look very similar to what it's looked like the last 2 years, and there aren't a whole lot of new players out there either. So I'm excited to see what Kellen Moore's offense is going to look like and how much different it's going to look. Because, look, when Joe Lombardi got hired, we did see a lot of those Saints concepts. We saw a lot of those underneath routes and just a lot of quick strikes, quick slants, throws to the flat, a lot of running back. And we were talking about, oh, wow, Austin Eckler is going to be like an Alvin Kamara. So, that was from first week of training camp. So those things do show up. And I would suspect it'll be the same with Kellen Moore. So that's what I'm almost excited. And it's exciting to watch the interaction when you're at training camp and you're not seeing what social media wants to show you and their edited clips and highlights. When you see the interaction between Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert, when you see the interaction between the wide receivers and Justin and Austin as they're trying to figure this thing out and put this puzzle together, that to me is considerably more intriguing than what I suspect will be a very similar defense.
That's the right answer. I'll make a case for the defense just because I think the leadership of Derek Ansley will be on display as the defensive coordinator. And we need to see this defense really take another step in year 3 under Brandon Staley. And I think having a lot of the guys that have been here now for 2 years, how are they going to look at the beginning of training camp? You hope that they're ahead of the offense, frankly, that they know their assignments. And
they should be.
They should be, right? So I do want to see what Derek Ansley does and how he puts his fingerprints on this. We know that Staley calls the plays, but I am excited to see Derek Ansley as the leader of this defense. Mayor of Boltsville, I believe the 2023 season will only go so far as the defense will take us. Will we see the D from early 2022 or the D from late season where they dominated against the Titans and Dolphins? So that's kind of what I'm getting at is the defense. Can they carry over that late season success early into 2023 and actually win some games for this team? And, Joey Bosa is going to be such a big piece of that money. It's unfortunate the last 2 playoff appearances that the Chargers have had, Joey has had kind of like a similar trajectory where he gets hurt at the beginning of the year, misses a bulk of the season, then comes back, but you don't know if he was really 100% towards the end of the year. So we need that dominant year from Joey to really see that true potential of this Chargers defense.
No doubt. And that's all it is. It's just health. I mean, people forget how ravaged this defense was by health all season long, really just from the jump. With Joey going down so early, J.C. Jackson going down early, J.T. Woods never ascending to a role that they thought he was going to play. Nas, remember, was dinged up at the start of the season. Drew Tranquill missed a couple games there early. Kenneth Murray was hurt coming into the season. Then, of course, you lost your entire interior defensive line with the exception of Sebastian Joseph Day. So it's one of those things where if you're just asking me, is it going to be better? What about 2022 versus 23? Well, it's health. It's just health. Are they going to stay healthy? Can they figure out a way to keep these guys on the field? That's ultimately what it's going to come down to. You already mentioned Eric Kendricks, and because that's really the only change. It's Eric Kendricks, and it's some rookies that you're crossing your fingers. Tuli Tuipulotu, that you're hoping can be that third pass rusher. He was taken in the second round, expected to play from week 1 on and have a big role. So that's really it. But to me, it's just, are they healthy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other addition, I think Nick Williams, just for depth purposes. And then people forget that Austin Johnson got hurt in the Atlanta game. JC got hurt early in the year. And, we've talked about JC a lot. And the hope is that he's back on the field come September. This is from Darren Alex Money. What's more important for the front office this year, extending Herbert or adding a quality vet or 2 on a 1-year deal?
Staying Herbert. The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets and the less money you have to spend. So I would, and again, it's 2 sides. It's what does his agent want? Does his agent want to wait out Joe Burrow and top it? Because that's good for his agent to say, even though he was the number 6 pick in the draft and Burrow was the number 1, we still got more money. So you don't know where they're at. But to me, that's it's not a cloud that's overhead. It's just something that's not done. It's unfinished business that needs to get done this offseason. Now, I know they can push back and say, well, no, it doesn't. He's under contract for 2 more years. Yeah, look how that turned out in Baltimore. Yeah. You don't want this thing to drag out. So to me, that's more important. The vets are out there for a reason. Are they good players? Yes. Are they going to change your season? No. When we talk about bringing Bryce Callahan back, signing Jadeveon Clowney, Frank Clark, Yannick Ngakoue, things like that, that's depth. That's break glass in case of emergency. That's Joey Bosa's gone down, Khalil Mack's gone down. You got to have some depth there so you don't find yourself in the situation you were in last year. That's all we're talking about with those signings. They're not going to necessarily change the fortunes of the team. They're going to provide depth should you need it. So to me, I would really like to see this Herbert contract get done. Now that Jalen Hurts is done, Lamar Jackson is done, there's framework out there for you to use to just put this thing to bed and be able to figure out what your money looks like going forward.
Yeah, it would make really no sense to extend this any longer than it needs to be with Jalen done and with Lamar Jackson done and Burrow out there. All right, Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. Burrow's in that same category as Justin Herbert. Whoever tops whom, I don't think it really matters at this point because they're going to get another bite at the apple here in 5 to 7 years. And, you take the deal right now, and it's going to be a pretty darn good deal when you see what Lamar and Jalen got. This next question from Lightning McQueen. I think that's a play off the Titans sketch.
Yeah.
Name one player from offense and one player from defense that need to take the biggest steps forward this year for the Chargers to be contenders. That's a good question, Money. Do you want to go first?
Well, let's see. Offense, I suppose, since they didn't do anything in the draft and nothing in free agency, and clearly Austin Eckler getting a couple $1 million in incentives and not an extra year suggests that Isaiah Spiller better take that step. That's what they're expecting. They are expecting him to take that step, and there's a reason they drafted him in what I would consider a premium round for running backs. It's where good running backs tend to go. So that would be the biggest one. Austin has said it repeatedly. And look, he was not at his best in that Jacksonville game. They rushed for 14 yards in the second half because the season wears you down at that position. So in order to keep Austin fresh, you need a number two. And I skip over Josh Kelly because we know what Josh Kelly is. We know the style of run that works for him. He's not stretch it out. He's not make a guy juke and make a guy miss in the backfield. No, he is put your head down and crash through the line. Find that hole and go get it. He's a good pass protector. We don't know what Isaiah is. So on offense, I would go Isaiah. On defense, it's going to sound crazy. It's Joey Bosa. He's got to stay healthy. Yeah. He has got to stay healthy. And I know that's easier said than done. It's a violent game. It's a physical game, but he is one of the top-paid defensive ends in the league. He is one of the best defensive ends in the league. He means so much to that defense, and he gets hurt. He is off the field too much for this team to be successful. So I'm not trying to pin it on him and saying he can play and he's not. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying somehow, whether, you hear about it all the time, oh, this guy started doing yoga and now I'm healthy, whatever that thing is. And if it's less reps because you have depth on the defensive line and he doesn't have to play as much, whatever that thing might be, that's the most important step that needs to be taken on this defense over the last 3 years. Having that guy out there for 15 games, 14, 15 games, and the playoffs is what's going to do the most for this team. There is nothing that will compare to what that would do for this team.
I'm in lockstep with you on Joey because, the numbers that he's put up, they've come in years where they haven't won and they haven't been to the playoffs. That's why in 2023, you want to see Joey with monster numbers, tackles for loss, getting after the quarterback, and that contributing to actually getting to the playoffs and winning some games. So I'm with you there. I throw Kenneth Murray in there. I think we've seen Kenneth Murray ascend a little bit, but this is going to be a huge year for him. And when you have Eric Kendricks in the room now and Deion Henley kind of nipping at your heels and maybe a candidate to get some playing time, Kenneth was somebody who was drafted when Anthony Lynn was here, and this is a big year for him. Offensively, I'm with you again on Isaiah Spiller. I'd add Donald Parham to the mix because this is a guy that has so much potential. He was so efficient with his touches and his receptions when he kind of burst onto the scene, scored like 3 touchdowns in like 6 catches, had that really scary injury on Thursday Night Football against the Chiefs, was hurt last year. And we talk about this basketball team they're building with Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams and Palmer and Everett. But I feel like we haven't mentioned Parham as much just because he's been kind of out of sight, out of mind. And this is an opportunity for him to take advantage of one-on-ones and to build on that basketball team that they have right now, especially with Mike and Quentin and Joshua there. You're going to see some one-on-one opportunities. You're a big dude, and Justin knows how to find you. So I do think that if Donald can contribute, we're talking about what you were saying, Money, this offense, continuously putting up points and different guys contributing.
Yeah, I'm just going to 100%. That's a great one on Parham, especially in the red zone. But last year, Joey, 5 games, 2.5 sacks. Go back to the year before. Played all 16 games, 10.5 sacks, 7. 10.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles when he played 16 games. That's the type of impact that we're talking about. You know, in 2019, played 16 games, 11.5 sacks, and 47 solo tackles as a defensive end. Like, that changes everything. It changes everything. And that's what I'm getting. And you look through his log, and it was 5 games in 2022. It was 7 games in 2018. It was 12 games in 2020. So that's what I'm getting at. It's nothing directed at him personally. It's just how important he is and what a difference it makes when he's out there. To have him and Khalil Mack out there at the same time and Derwin out there, it just changes everything.
Week 18 a couple of years ago, too, like they were knocking on the door. If they would have beat the Raiders, they would have gotten to the postseason, and he was having an unbelievable year. Right? You mentioned those forced fumbles, man. He's a master at that. Andrew, bolt up Andrew. If/when Quentin Johnston becomes wide receiver 3, would it be during training camp or slowly but surely during the season? I don't know if you put him at wide receiver 3. I don't know if there is a wide receiver 3 on this team, frankly. That means that you'd have to supplant Joshua Palmer, who we've seen firsthand after practice working with Keenan Allen, getting those extra reps in, learning the offense. And I know it's a new offense now, but Joshua was instrumental when Keenan and Mike were down in helping this team win games. So I don't think you forget about Joshua Palmer. In the same breath, Derwin said that he's been very impressed with Quentin Johnston, that he's that dude. And that's a good thing to hear from your first-team All-Pro in the secondary.
Yeah, I think wide receiver 3 is just a weird way to look at it. The way I would frame it is reps, not even reps, snaps. How many snaps is he getting? You know, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Joshua Palmer, Jalen Guyton, Quentin Johnston. How many snaps is he getting? Can he get into the rotation where if Keenan's got to come off for a breather, give him a series off, and now Quentin's in the slot. Mike Williams just caught a 50-yard pass for a long bomb to put you in the red zone, and you got 1st and 10 from the 15. See Mike 6'3" out, Quentin Johnston 6'3" in. Like, that's, get your breather, Mike, and let's see if we can get this touchdown with fresh legs, Quentin, in the red zone. So it's not necessarily who's the wide receiver 1, who's the wide receiver 2, who's the wide receiver 3. It's all about how many snaps are you getting, because these guys aren't going to play. These wide receivers, if you have an explosive offense and if you're making big plays, they're going to need breathers. And so that's, to me, it's more about that. It's more about what are they asking him to do. Is he a big play guy? Think about Jalen Guyton. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't call him a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4. He was just a guy that was able to come up with some big plays, big 50-yard catches, and every season he'd have like 3 touchdowns, right? In those 2 seasons when he came on, like, that's the way to look at it. Where is he? Is he out there in the red zone? Is he out there on 3rd down? Is he a great 3rd down player? Does he have hands that Justin trusts, and that big body and the ability to use that catch radius against smaller corners? So that's more of a way to look at it. It's not about, hey, are they calling on, is Quentin going to surpass Josh Palmer? To me, it's more just all about the room. Mm-hmm. Is he someone who is able to get on the field for Justin to trust? There aren't drop issues. That's sort of what you're looking at more than where does he slot in the hierarchy of the receiver room. It's a lot more about production and snap totals than anything.
It's almost like tiers, right? When Keenan came on to the scene in 2013 and established himself, even the year that Mike Williams was drafted, Keenan was the undisputed number one wide receiver on the team. Now, I think you can make the case that it's 1 and 1A, right? Like Keenan and Mike eat first, right? Then
they're just so different.
Yeah, they're different too, right? You got a position guy and you got a 80-20 guy, right? Quentin and Joshua Palmer, I kind of put in that category. Like these are the guys fighting for more reps and can deliver. And then again, I don't think people should forget about Jalen Guyton. Jalen Guyton is still young, he's still fast, and I think he's going to be ready to go come the fall.
Here's the way I would look at it. Right? I'm pulling up the Bengals stats from last year. Jamar Chase, 1,050 yards, 9 touchdowns. T. Higgins, 1,030 yards, 7 touchdowns. Tyler Boyd had 762 and 5 touchdowns. And you look at first downs, Tyler Boyd had 41 first downs. So even though he's down that list in production, 41 first downs, moving the sticks, extending drives. It's like, yeah, that's your wide receiver 3, but that's how important that guy is. If you think, who else had a really deep receiver room? I'm going to Philadelphia right now, and I think what you're going to see. So here's what we got in Philadelphia, right? A.J. Brown, 1,511 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 1,200, 7 touchdowns. And then you go to Goddard because they have that dominant tight end. Here's a guy with 40 first downs. So that's sort of what I'm getting at. What do Quentin Johnston's numbers look like in first downs, in touchdowns? It's not necessarily about where does he slot in at the end of the year statistically. It's can you be a big contributor out there?
And if you're a Chargers fan, you should be encouraged that we're just talking about the wide receivers. We didn't mention Gerald Everett or Donald Parham, right? Those are guys that can also make plays down the field and get you key first downs and be a red zone threat. So Kellen Moore has a lot to work with. This is from our guys, the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast from Australia. These guys are awesome. A simple one for you, Chris and Money. Fan excitement may be suppressed right now because of the brutal way that last season ended in Jacksonville, but this is still a good roster. Number one, what is your record prediction for the 2023 Chargers? And number two, will they win the AFC West? Love the show.
Jeez. That's
Money, I'll go first and just say that.
Go ahead.
I don't think the team has given us enough to say they're a 12 or 13 win team yet. Are they capable? Absolutely. But the AFC is so much tougher. I still see them as a 9, 10, 11 win team with the potential to have a higher ceiling. But I can't.
It's a tough schedule.
It's tough.
It's the AFC East. We expect all 4 of those teams to be potential playoff teams. They get the NFC North, which they get a little bit of a break, I believe. I don't expect Minnesota to be a 13-win team again this year. Green Bay still has a very good defense, but you've got to believe they're going to take a step back on offense. At least I think they are with Jordan Love. It would be a real condemnation about how checked out Aaron Rodgers was if they don't take a step back. The Bears are still rebuilding. The Lions are certainly on the come, but I'll believe it when I see it. Or as Patrick Mahomes says, I'll see it when I believe it. So it's not an easy schedule. The good thing is their primetime games are at home, and that's a big win. 4 of them are at home, so that helps a lot when you're sitting around all day. You're not sitting in a hotel room waiting for kickoff. You're a little bit more in your comfort zone. You don't have to show up to the stadium until a little bit later. You get to kind of be a little bit more on a regular schedule, so that's good. And I just think it's foolish to pick against the Chiefs as much as I'd like to. We did it last year, and for whatever reason, this team just has yet to get over that hump. They can't beat Kansas City. They can put them on the ropes, and you can see Kansas City. They're wobbling. They're leaning against those ropes, and you just need that one more punch to knock them out, and they have not been able to do it. So until I see that, I think it's just a little bit too, homerish to say yes. I'm picking them to win the AFC West, and I'm picking them to win 13 games. I think based on what the schedule looks like and what the Chiefs have been able to do, regardless of personnel, as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have been there, they'll be in the mix. They'll have an opportunity, just like they did last year in prime time at SoFi, until they lost on the last possession. And if they can get over that hump, then yes, they can be a 12-win AFC West championship team. But we got to see it. It's until they show us they can beat the Chiefs, it's very, very hard to project that and to do it logically.
Athir asked you the same question, and you pretty much just answered it. This is the show me season now, Money. It's, last year I think we got caught up in all the trades and the free agent acquisitions and the potential and how scary this team could look like on both sides of the football. And this is going to be the year that you dethrone the Chiefs. Yeah. And guess what? The Chiefs win another Super Bowl. So
the thing about the Chiefs is this. So I'm just kind of going back because this is what everyone's going to point to, and I get it, right? I totally get it. So the Chargers are up 17-7. They got 2 BS penalties called against them that should have been interceptions, and instead one was a review that should have never overturned what was an interception from Asante. The worst one was the pass interference called on Callahan, and which was an interception when a receiver just ran right into his back. So that's what they point to, like, oh my gosh, they could have been up 31-7. That's the way that thing was going, and then Herbert hurts his ribs, and then it's the pick six that ends up being the difference in that game. And when they're tied at 17 and it's a 1st and goal, and they would have gone up 25. That's every year.
I know. There's enough of a sample size now, right?
It's like I'm going to the loss in SoFi from last year, right? Chiefs outscored the Chargers 14-7 and win 30-27. They outscore them 14-7 in the fourth quarter, and they win 30-27 at SoFi. Yes, they were up 27-23 with 1:46 to go, and they lost the game. Like, that's the stuff that needs to change in order to pick them to win the AFC West. When they've got the Chiefs on the ropes, they've got to knock them out. Regardless of bad officiating, regardless of the sideline didn't see Gerald Everett tapping out after that long completion, and he wasn't ready for the snap, and that's how the pick six came. Clean it up. That's the stuff that's got to get cleaned up in order to beat a team that's been to the Super Bowl 3 times in the last 4 years and won 2 of them.
Yep. All right, next one. This is fun from Scott. Your guys' ideal jersey selection combo for the home primetime games. You mentioned they got 4 of them. What's your go-to fit?
Well, I don't like the navy. Never have. Not my thing. I like the powder blue. So I know the players like the navy. Some people like the navy. I do not. I'm not a fan of the navy, and I think their record suggests as much. They do not play well in the navy, so that could be one of my issues, and I am a uniform guy, so I believe in that stuff. I don't like wearing white at home. To me, you are the home team. Wear your color. Very, very few fans are buying white Charger jerseys. They're buying powder blue jerseys. So to me, that's what you should wear at home. I have long been a powder blue top, gold pant guy, but I've come around on the powder blue white pant combo. So to me, I would just alternate those. I do 2 of each, and well, let me check that. So I'll do two powder blue gold. I'll do 1 powder blue white, and then give me the Royals, because the royal blue is my favorite. So give me the royal blue. That's what I will take. To me, get the navy out of here. Just lose it. Keep it the royal blue as your alternate blue with the powder blue. I don't need the navy. I want Stan, Natron means business. My apologies, but I want Dan Fouts, Chuck Muncie, royal blue. Charlie Joyner, that's my Charger color of preference. I love the royal blue.
Love the Royals. I wish they would have worn the Royals on Sunday Night Football against the Dolphins. Like the Epic in Miami vibes when they beat, you know what I mean? So you have enough primetime games where you can throw the Royals in. Maybe we're the Royals week 1 against the Dolphins. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe just kick it off with a throwback vibe.
To me, one of my favorite, like one of the things about uniforms, as I'm kind of looking at the schedule here, is like I want to mimic what's in the stands. What are most of your fans buying? When you walk around town and you walk around SoFi, what are most people wearing? Most people are wearing a powder blue number 10. That's what the majority of the fans are wearing right now. So, match the people that are there. House is going to be packed. They're primetime games. Powder blues are going to be out. You ought to match them.
All right. Money hates this next question. Will the Navy helmet make a debut on the uniforms?
Sure as hell hope not.
What if they did it without the number and it was just like it was like an ode to the no, that's not
Interested.
That's not gonna get it done for you.
Not interested at all. I'm trying to see. Let me see if I still have it. If I can find one of the 2021 Week 16. I'm trying to find just kind of one of our Chargers notes. But I don't think these are all from 2021. I'm seeing.
There's been some heartbreak in those Navies. Do you remember the Raiders game in 20?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm trying to find my downloads here of. I'm going to back. I got to go to the back end of 2022 here. Here we go. Let me see if I can find it for the playoff game, so I can get that number. I want to see what their record is, because I'm telling you, they do not do well in those uniforms. I know for a fact they don't do well, and unfortunately I can't find any. If you have any, I know for a fact the uniform record is on our game notes. I just can't find. I think I delete them all, unfortunately. So, but I'm almost positive. Yeah, I am almost positive. See, because I'm just so obsessive compulsive. Let me see if I can pull it up. No, that ain't gonna work.
I'll ask this last question as you pull it up. We talked about Eric Kendricks, but the leadership aspect on the defense, is Connor talked about him versus Tranquil. He thinks that Kendricks' leadership is going to be really instrumental for this team. I look at some of the free agent moves.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that question. Do me a favor, Chris. Read me that question, because there was one that jumped out at me when I read it, and I was like, that's not fair. It might be that one.
Yep, Connor. How much of an impact do you foresee Eric Kendricks' leadership on the defense have? I feel like that is the main difference between he and Tranquil. I feel like he is a much better leader.
So, yeah, that's not fair. And I'll tell you why. Because
Connor, let me just finish what he said. I played college inside linebacker, and I feel like the most important role of a Mike is to not only be a playmaker, but more importantly, a leader and coordinator of the defense. I always felt like Tranquil wasn't that kind of leader.
So, disagree.
Yeah.
Which is fine, Connor. No worries. I'm not coming at you or anything like that. I'm just saying I'll disagree. Having been around the team, you don't get the green dot without being a leader. And his teammates loved him. Absolutely loved playing with Drew. He's a great leader. He's a great linebacker. He had a breakout season last year. I thought for sure he was going to be coming back. He's not. Why isn't he? My belief goes back to what we said about Joey Bosa. Drew's really struggled to stay healthy. He's just had myriad injuries throughout his career. He's struggled with injuries, just soft tissue stuff that tends to pop up. To me, that's ultimately what got him. And I think this team has dealt with so much bad injury luck that they figured we can get the same thing. Maybe it's a slight upgrade, even though the guy's a little bit older and is probably at his peak right now in Eric Kendricks. Whereas Drew is an ascending player. He has gotten better every single year. And you tend to want to keep those guys around. I think for them, it's just limit our injury bad luck. Let's try to, if we can control it and we can find, and remember, they paid Eric Kendricks more than Drew got from Kansas City. So to me, that's why he's not here and Eric Kendricks is. I certainly think that Kendricks provides more. They don't need leadership. You don't need leadership on a defense that's got Khalil Mack and Derwin James. Like that's not something that I think you necessarily need. Now, I think Kendricks is going to provide it. We've talked to him enough, and we know him from UCLA. We were with him on Monday at the golf tournament and talked to him for a little while, actually quite a while. And so I know that he said, I'm trying to just let the team come to me. I'm not putting myself out there too much, just sort of seeing how it's all laid out. But he even echoed what Colin, I think Colin was his name, said in the question that, yes, this is something I'm used to, that is required from my position, and I expect to have a leadership role. But I don't think Brandon Staley said we need more leadership on this defense. I don't think that's what was said at all. To me, it's more, can we limit our injury issues? Is there a way to do that without sacrificing quality at the position. And to me, that's more of what this is.
I think it's more about Kendricks' play and his history as a really good linebacker versus his leadership. Like you said, when you have Derwin James is your leader. Yeah. Khalil Mack, you bring in guys like Sebastian Joseph Day and Kyle Van Noy was a leader late in the year. He kind of waited to make his move as leader of the team late down the stretch when Joey was out. So you're right. You don't need more leaders. You need playmakers and you need health. That's it. You need health.
100%. Number one ability, availability.
That's all we got. Anything else before we get out of here? I guess we got mandatory minicamp coming up, so we'll have you covered with that, and then we hit it for summer vacation.
Probably, I think the only other thing to bring up, just because I mentioned it last week about Damon Lloyd getting cut. Yeah, they signed Darius Shepard, just kind of a journeyman wide receiver. So making sure I acknowledge that for people that are coming back this week saying, whatever happened with that spot? Leonard Floyd was signed, and yeah, they signed Darius Shepard. And by the way, I'll just share because I asked him on the air about it. We asked Tom Telesco at the golf tournament. There's a lot of big free agents out there. So we brought that up, what's going on, and also brought up the Herbert contract with Tom and just said that everything is fine between Herbert, his representatives, Tom, Ed McGuire. Everything's fine. They're just still trying to figure it out. No issues there. And he said in terms of free agents that he believes similar to what we said at the top of the show. These guys are just waiting. They're either waiting for the perfect deal or they like to kind of be out there until training camp maybe gets going.
I think the latter makes a heck of a lot of sense, especially if you're in your 7th, 8th, 9th year in the league. You're not trying to go to mandatory minicamp.
No.
Maybe miss that first week or two of training camp if you can, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Guys, I can't thank you enough for your questions. Each time we do this, it gets bigger and bigger. Appreciate you guys watching on YouTube and the Chargers app and listening wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking minicamp and getting you ready for training camp here in a month and a half. For Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly.